Hello and welcome back to Geek and Speak, the Geek and Seek podcast. And today we are ranking Tommy's Commander decks. This is something we've done for all of our decks in our main play group, except for Tommy. So with his birthday coming up, we felt like, hey, we gotta do that. We gotta rank Tommy's decks since we've ranked everyone else's decks. It gotta give the man some love. With that said, it's also Tommy's first time on the podcast.
True.
I can't believe that's possible. We've been doing this podcast off and on for years, and somehow this is his first time appearing. So with that said, Tommy, how's it going?
Pretty good. Not gonna lie, I kind of forgot that my birthday was coming up, and that's why we're doing this now. It's been. We'll leave it at that.
Word up. Yeah, it's been a while since the guys on the channel have seen you. So
yeah,
it's good to have you. And then this is also the first hybrid episode of the Geek and Speak podcast. I got Tommy sitting right next to me, and then Jason is half an hour away. Jason, how's it going?
Going okay. I won't get into too specific details, but I am having a surgery tomorrow, so not doing as great as we could be, but it's all gonna be fine. I'm not gonna die or anything. It'll be good. It'll be all right.
Word up, Jason. So Jason, we tend to do that, like our just over the Zoom, not in person episodes of the podcast tend to do better, and then the in person episodes of the podcast tend to flop. Since we're doing a hybrid episode, what's your prediction on what's going to happen with this episode?
Billion views.
All right, word up. Lincoln Park, we're coming for you. So.
Magic the Gathering video in the history of YouTube.
Yeah.
No, forget YouTube. In the history of internet media.
Oh, all right. Yeah, here we go. All right. If you would like to support the show, you can do all the YouTube algorithm stuff. That being hitting like on the video, subscribing if you haven't already, checking out all of our other content. We have lots of other podcasts. We have some Commander gameplay. We have video essays, all sorts of cool stuff. Go check that out. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can head over to patreon.com/geekandseekyoutube. All right. Let's hop into this. So I wanted to ask you, Tommy, as we're hopping into this, what are some trends you see in your decks, and then how many decks are in your normal rotation?
Yeah. So I have when it comes to building decks and trends and stuff, I notice I tend towards a lot of faster, more aggro-y sort of smash face style combat stuff, and
less thinky, more attacky.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't do a whole lot of like control or stacks or crazy combos or storm or whatever. I've got some combos, but like they're not super complicated. It's just a lot of like simple, fast aggro stuff like that. So
cool. And then how many decks are in your normal rotation? Like how many decks do you have in total? And then I know that that's like not an accurate representation of your actual number of decks.
So in the accurate rotation, in the main rotation, I've got 9 of ones that I play pretty regularly and have sort of invested a little bit in and put some more thought in. And then I've got another 6 or 7, I think, Precons that I've played before, and some of them are still together as Precons. Others have been piecemealed out and thrown into other decks for parts. And so, so I think total probably about 16, 17 decks.
Wow. All right. Yeah. So you're not far behind the rest of us, which is impressive because you just started playing Commander as you joined our group. So the fact that you were able to get up to our level is like a sign that the infection that is Commander is effective, and it's a good virus.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's start off. We'll just go through each of your main decks, and then if we have time at the end of the episode, we'll talk a little bit about some of those precons that you have. But we'll just go through your decks. We'll talk about who the commander is, what the goal of the deck is, and then maybe highlight a couple of the really important cards. So why don't you lead us through the first one?
All right, cool. First one is my favorite deck that I have, my favorite commander. It's Isshin, Two Heavens is one from Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Pretty simple. He doubles attack triggers of my anything on my board. So he just the whole theme of the deck is things that attack and have a trigger that go with it. Happens twice. Gets a lot of value from that. So some of the main sort of staple cards in that are Kranko, 10 Street Kingpin, always good. Just make a ton of goblins. Campaign of Vengeance is a fun enchantment that I don't have it. I should have brought it. Should have pulled the card up.
Jason might have it on screen because he's a real good editor.
He's a good editor. But it gets a ton of value, and then Shiny Impetus is also a good. It's actually a fun
goad
aura that goes on other opponents' creatures, and it goads them, and then makes me treasures whenever attacks happen. So just tons of value. That's kind of what the point of the deck is. Smash face and get a ton of value out of it. So,
do you need a reminder on what Campaign of Vengeance does?
Yeah, if you could.
So it's whenever a creature you control attacks, defending player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life.
Yeah.
That seems good.
Yeah. So pings the board, or pings my opponents and gains me life. So
it's really good because it's not just like whenever you attack, it's whenever a creature you control attacks.
Exactly.
So if you have 10 creatures and they all attack, that's 20 damage that goes
if Isshin's in play.
To the player that you're attacking, and you gain 20 life. So
and I gain 20 life. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Very, and that especially highlights another thing with Isshin, is that just the snowball effect of it can get pretty insane.
Yeah, that's like a decent card by itself, and then with Isshin doubling it potentially. Yeah.
He's one of the more popular from Kamigawa, I know. So
it's it's probably my favorite deck that you have. And honestly, when's the last time that you touched it? When's the last time, as far as editing it?
As far as editing it, I was actually looking at it just a couple weeks ago and looking at things I can update. As far as adding cards to it, it's been a while.
See, that's the thing. I really wish that you would give Isshin a little bit more TLC, because I really think that Isshin could be a powerhouse and could just easily take over. Because I feel like it's supposed to be an aggro deck where you get creatures out and you start swinging as soon as you can.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the times it just doesn't feel like it goes that way with Isshin.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I just really feel like that this has potential to be an absolute monster in our play group, especially with the way that our play group is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of Dirtle value engines, so if you were able to add more pressure, you'd steal a lot more wins than you do.
I for sure.
Because honestly, I feel like that this would probably be your best deck against Preston, because that's what a lot of Preston's decks do, is they just just dirtle and do value things and just kind of string the game along and kind of
eventually win.
He'll show the win con on turn 19 or something.
Yeah, he'll eventually win by just overwhelming force, but
making you regret ever picking up a Magic the Gathering card after turn 15.
Right.
It's why did I play this game ever in the first place? This deck would be the answer for all those games.
Yeah.
That's kind of my point, is this was one of your first commander decks, but it was more or less mostly built with things that you had sitting around, that we were able to provide you just sitting around in our bulk.
Yeah, the first iteration of it was built completely out of stuff I had or stuff that you guys gave me.
Yeah, so
I didn't buy any cards for it other than the commander.
Yeah, so the problem with that is that it is definitely suboptimal. It's a weaker Isshin deck, which is too bad, because you have decks that you've built since then that you've built from scratch or whatever, and they, I think, are stronger than your Isshin deck, even though theoretically Isshin should be stronger, but just because it hasn't gotten the same attention. So I think when we did our commander tier list series, I don't remember I'm pretty sure we gave Isshin an A, and it was one of the commanders that we thought about maybe giving an S, if I remember right, just because we like the commander so much, because it's so cool and incentivizes you to play some fun cards. So as of right now, it's not my favorite of your decks, but just because Isshin is one of the coolest commanders ever, in my opinion. I think whenever you get around to giving it a little more TLC and bringing it up to the rest of your decks, it'll be up there. It might be might be my favorite deck of yours.
Yeah, Isshin is top of the list right now as far as priorities for upgrades because like you both said, he could be real nasty if I invested some good old moolah into him. And
So like if we're doing a true like ranking, I'm giving Isshin an S for me.
I would give it an A with room for improvement. It's got cool cards in it. It's got cool cards in it. It's an awesome commander.
Yeah.
Yes.
S potential for sure. Yeah.
Yes. All right. What do we got next?
Next up, we have one of the very first decks I ever got, Galea, Kindler of Hope. This was started as a precon from way back in what was it?
Adventures of the Forgotten Realms.
Yeah, Adventures of the Forgotten Realms.
Which I believe was 2019.
2019,
might have been 2020,
something like that. But it's a pretty standard Voltron. It's just all about attaching good equipments to Galea, and then hitting people in the face for commander damage and taking them out with commander damage. So it's just, I love Voltron decks. I think they're really fun to just build up a giant creature and smack face. And Galea is one of the better ones, I think, as far as just the value that she generates, the fact that you can get around, she lets you get around equip costs on equipment, and lets you play cards from the top of your deck too, or from the top of your library, is really, really good.
Which we know how Jason feels about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Jason loves that. So,
sorry, repeat that. What do I love?
Looking at and playing stuff from the top of your library.
Oh God, yeah.
It's like his favorite thing.
This was 2021, actually.
Oh, even more recent. See, it's all just a blur.
Adventures in the Forgotten Realms released July 23rd, 2021.
Okay.
I should have stated this earlier in the video, but most, if not all, of these decks that we're talking about today, you can see in our gameplay series. So
all of these have been featured in an episode, yes.
Isshin specifically has been on the show like 3 times or something ridiculous. And then Galea, you played on the Voltron episode, right?
Yes, one of the very first episodes of the show, yep.
It was the first episode we ever filmed. It wasn't the first one that came out, but it was the first one we ever filmed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like this one. I also am a big fan of Voltron decks. I think it's really sad in the sense that it seems like it checks all the boxes to be like a really strong Voltron deck, in the fact that like one of the things that can hold Voltron decks back just in general is like eventually you get to the point where if people keep removing your commander, you're held back by like commander tax or whatever, but you're in green, so you can just keep ramping. And your deck is definitely able to do that. You have had games where someone like kills your commander like 9 times and you're still able to cast it, so you're able to do that, but it still just feels like medium-ish power level. But with that said, I'm able to like give it a little bit of grace just because I too am a big Voltron deck believer in, not that they're good, but that they're fun. I'd give it like a B plus. Like it's fun, it's cool. We don't see it as often as a lot of your other decks, but I just really like Voltron decks. I think they add some neat threat assessment to the table, and I personally like the play pattern. And Galea is a cool commander too.
Should be an A, because I don't think that the commander tax is necessarily a big problem with this deck. Not because you have green and you're going to be able to ramp and get all the lands out or anything, and not because you can like cheat it in or what, but totem armor. I think that if you put I think if you put the auras in this deck that have totem armor, you're just gonna prevent Galea from having to be retapped from the command zone a lot of the time.
Yep.
So that's the way that I would build it to get around that. To, avoid my whole plan being foiled by just one creature getting destroyed. Just put a bunch of totem armor on it.
Well, just protection in general. Like Swiftfoot boots and stuff like that. Yeah.
And it's got a fair bit of that.
Green and white are pretty good protection colors.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So, I really like Galea. I think that as far as Voltron commanders go, I think this is one of the more interesting ones, and it's one of the more fun ones you can play. I'm a little bit biased in that sense because it is playing from the top of your library, so but I really like Galea.
Yeah. So that kind of gets into something that we'll talk more about in a little bit with another one of my decks, but what kind of holds it back, in my opinion, a little bit is that it is equipment based. whereas artifacts tend to feel a little bit easier to get rid of and get around effects on sometimes. I think there's a lot more, at least in our play group, it feels like we tend to run more
a lot
ways
of artifact removal,
get rid of
stuff.
artifacts, not enchantments. And so because most of her value specifically refers to equipments as artifacts, it limits it a little bit, but there's still obviously room to put some enchantments in there. Like
though I would say that if you wanted to meta game for our play group, just because that I agree with you that is a trend that we see a lot more Vandal Blast, Bane of Progress, Farewell, so we see a lot of that more so than maybe the average play group. But if you wanted to meta game for that, I would say like you could be playing more of the like the Sun Titan effects or the eternal witnesses and stuff like that to just get stuff back from your graveyard. Just like if that really is a fear of yours, you are in like colors that are really good for like getting your stuff back. Or if you you have some auras in there, right? But like if you were like all in on equipments, maybe it's worth thinking about like Brilliant Restoration or one of these like mass reanimation spells for your equipments. But yeah, there's a little bit of metagame potential there, just because that is something you could worry about in our play group.
Yeah. That's one of the best ones in there for just getting stuff back for free. It's just an insane card. Yeah.
All right. What do we got next, Tommy?
All right. Next up, a very topical commander, Edgar Markov. Just recently got a reprint in Innistrad Remastered. And
now it's affordable.
Is not a $100+ commander.
$50 for a card. Affordable, sure.
It's down. We were just talking about this. It's down to like 30.
Really?
Yeah.
But what's it do, Tommy?
Anyway,
as if we don't know. But what is it?
It's take a guess. There's only one thing he does. It's Vampire Tribal. So just crazy value with vampires. He's got Eminence, one of the most broken commander abilities ever created.
No,
so much so
the most broken commander ability.
Yeah, the most, because so much.
Not
so
one of
they literally
the most.
Not,
it's number one.
It's number one. Yeah,
Commander Ninjutsu.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
No, because you don't even have to do anything. You literally just play your deck and it does stuff.
It just Eminence is just absolutely broken, and so much so they literally have not printed it on. They printed it on like one or two.
Yeah, there
cards.
was one commander from like March of the Machine that had it or something,
and it was nowhere near as powerful of an effect as the 2017 commanders were. So,
right.
And Edgar is arguably one of the better ones of those 4 2017 commander decks. Him and Dragon are just powerhouses. But yeah, so it's just all about getting vampires out and you doing some fun bleed effects and life gain and powerful death touch and stuff like that. So just good old fun times with vampires.
I think Edgar Markov is definitely it's a boogeyman of the format. I wouldn't say it's a boogeyman of our play group, but Edgar Markov is definitely a boogeyman of the format, because when you talk about premier vampire commanders, this is the one. This is the best. This is the best vampire commander that you could possibly play. I before you had the Edgar Markov deck, my buddy Cody, which you guys have seen on the channel if you watched the CEDH episode, he has an Edgar Markov deck, and that thing goes crazy. That thing goes absolutely nuts. You have to keep it in check anytime that he plays it, because even if he just gets like 4 turns in a row, like the first 4 turns where nobody does anything to him, he's probably going to put him very far ahead. But I still think that Edgar it's a cool commander. Like, it's not something that, like, if I sit down at a random table, and somebody plays Edgar Markov, I'm not going to get up from that table and go play somewhere else. I'm going to be like, all right, this is going to be a challenge. I'm going to have to keep the Edgar Markov player in check. Cool. Yeah, exactly.
I think it's a commander that, like, if you're playing a responsible deck, that it's not actually that bad. Like, I do agree that Eminence is, like, broken, and that Edgar Markov is very powerful. But, like, I remember I played against a couple Edgar Markov decks in Vegas 2 years ago, I think, and they didn't win because people were, like, responsible and played removal and board wipes and all that kind of stuff.
That's the thing. He's such a boogeyman that he becomes, like, not necessarily arch enemy every time, but beatable. Like, you players who know what's up look at you as the Edgar player and go, okay, we need to keep an eye on you. We're not going to let you pull any fast ones on us.
So
it's not
here's my
that they're
problem
becoming the arch enemy. It's just everyone understands that they have to at least keep Edgar Markov in check.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that my least favorite part about Edgar Markov is that it's hard to justify playing a different vampire commander. And that's too bad because there's a lot of really cool and interesting vampire commanders. My favorite one is the Grixis ones from Streets of New Capenna. It's like whenever you play a vampire, you get to like steal a spell from an opponent or something like that. It's really, really cool. But like, why would you play that when you could play Edgar, which is way stronger? So like, that's my problem with Edgar. But I will say that at least in a lot of ways, you had originally the vampire precon from
Innistrad,
Crimson Vow.
Crimson Vow, yeah.
And you've played that on the show once or twice. I think you played in the tribal episode, and then
like
you also played it in
0.
Plane Chase.
Oh, Plane Chase, yes.
Yeah, the Plane Chase episode. And then there was also the Clavileño precon from Ixalan, the newer Ixalan set.
Lost Caverns of Ixalan.
Which you played on the episode where we all played those precons,
yep.
and then you also brought it back for Revenge Week for that season because, it wasn't a great first showing. But then you were like the boogeyman when you brought it back, you know? Great game. I love Revenge Week. That was such a great episode.
That was a fun one, yeah.
But like you kind of took those two decks, and then you took like your favorite pieces from both of them and you put them together for Edgar Markov.
Yep.
And in that sense, I'm like, that's a better way to play Edgar. Because I think if you play Edgar optimally, you just play a bunch of like low to the ground creatures so you can go wide with the Eminence ability. But if you like are just like playing like your favorite vampires, that's a lot more interesting to me. So I don't mind your Edgar Markov deck.
I haven't played it in a while because it along with Isshin is they're kind of my top two that I'm like I'm gonna invest
your Mardu
in,
decks.
Yeah, my Mardu decks, of course, they're both the same color identity.
Mardu's fun color, and it's always fun having like really strong decks that don't have blue or green because those are probably like
the best two colors in Commander, at least for sure.
I mean, I would make the argument that either black or white is second strongest in Commander. I mean, at this point
stands.
But yeah.
But yeah, they're both very, very common, very powerful colors. But yeah, so those two are like my top two that I want to really upgrade and make scarier. So, but yeah, he's a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward.
You know what I just thought about? Like, you could throw Isshin into your Edgar Markov deck.
So
because Edgar's got the attack trigger.
Yep. If you go on EDH Rec, those two synergize so well with each other. They're like whichever one you put at the top as your commander, the other is like one of the top synergies of the 99 that it suggests.
That's interesting.
Because you just Edgar's got the really good attack trigger that is doubled by Isshin. It's good either way.
I feel like Isshin is better in an Edgar Markov deck than Edgar Markov is in an Isshin deck.
I agree with that.
Lot of
unless you're just building your Isshin deck with a bunch of vampires.
Right.
But I don't know.
All right, so what do we got next, Tommy?
Up next is my other Voltron deck, newer one in the roster, Pearl Ear Imperial Advisor. This one, if you're familiar with Light Paws, it's Diet Light Paws. It's just all kinds of crazy powerful enchantments, put them on the commander and smack face. So
yeah, we've seen this once. It was on the Modern Horizons 3 episode of the show is when you got to pull this one out. And you know what? That might have been the only time I've played against it. And so I will say that I agree that it's nice that it kind of feels like fixed Light Paws because Light Paws is busted. Like Preston has a Light Paws deck. He's played it on the show before. When we want a quick game, that's the deck he pulls out, you know. But with that said, I don't have strong opinions about it because it's a mono white Voltron deck. It's nothing new, and it definitely it has a lot of the same cards in the 99 that you would see in a Light Paws deck, and I hate Light Paws. I don't have negative feelings towards this card the way that I do Light Paws, but
I mean, I haven't terrorized the group as much with it as
like I said, I think the when we filmed the Modern Horizons 3 episode, I'm pretty sure is the only time I've ever played against it. So I don't really have opinions about this deck.
I've only played it. I built it for that episode, and I've only played it maybe once or twice since we filmed that episode because it's one of those powerful decks that it's like, yeah, it's not quite as busted as Light Paws, but it's still one of those that like, man, it feels kind of bad to play against it sometimes when you're just getting curb stomped, like so.
By the way, I forgot to say this for Edgar. I'd give your Edgar Markov a B because it's still Edgar Markov, but it's not as bad as what Edgar Markov could be.
Yeah.
This I need to see more of it. I mean, I haven't played against it too much. I think only the one time, I'm pretty sure I played against it. So I just need to see it more. I definitely think that this could be a fun deck to play against because it could be something that's like, oh, this is actually a problem. How am I going to get around this? Especially with white being probably the best color at protecting yourself. A lot of the enchantments that you see, like you said, Morgan, a lot of the enchantments that you see in Light Paws are going to be in Pearl Ear, which a lot of them are going to be, protection from creatures, protection from these colors, totem armors. So it's going to be hard to deal with, but I don't think it's super oppressive the way that Light Paws is. So I think it's cool. And I think that this is a cooler animal than Light Paws is because Light Paws is stupid.
I hear that. So we actually missed one going through this list in order. Do you want to hit your Go-Shintai deck?
Oh yeah. This one is probably a close second for my favorite deck.
I'm sorry. What was your first?
Isshin.
It was Isshin? Okay.
Yeah, Isshin's my top guy. He's my man. But this one's probably my second favorite. Go-Shintai of Life's Origin. It's shrines. And I think it's just really fun. I actually built this after playing a game against Denzel has the shrine deck, right? Jason? Yeah. Yeah. So I played against that. Yeah. Has he been on the? I don't know if he's been on the show.
He will be on the show. We have an episode we're going to film where he will be brought on, but he has not been on it yet.
I know we were talking about it. I didn't know, but yeah, Jason's brother-in-law played it, and it was super cool, super fun to play against and just see what it could do. So I was like, I kind of want to build one, and I did, and it very quickly became one of my favorite decks because it's just it's 5-color, and I didn't have a 5-color deck at the time, and I think it's more interesting 5-color than just like 5-color good stuff or 5-color dragons or something like or dragon or whatever. And so
it's very clear as to like this is what you're supposed to do. Yeah.
And it's kind of the sort of polar opposite to Edgar Markov in that like Edgar, you see Edgar on the table and you're like, okay, I have to keep you in check. I'm always keeping an eye on you, the Edgar player. Go-Shintai, a lot of the games I've won with it have been because I kind of just slid under the radar for a while, and then all of a sudden, oh no, I'm pinging everyone for 8 damage on upkeep and 8 damage on end step on end step because of those shrines and all the other shrines that I've created, and now I've won. So
because like the thing I've always noticed with Go-Shintai is that you'll play a shrine and then Go-Shintai will make a shrine and it'll be like, oh, that's just gonna deal 2 damage every turn. That's not gonna be very much. And
then wait till the next shrine comes.
Time goes on, 2 or 3 turns later, now you're dealing 8 damage to everybody per turn, and it's like, how did we get here?
Where did this come from? Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does scale. I will say that like so the 2 times it's been on the show, it was once on the you originally built it for the $100 budget episode.
Yes.
Which was also a very good episode that people should go check out. But then also there's an episode that hasn't come out yet. I think it's going to be the next one that comes out where I think it was like an anything goes, like no theme, but like there is a theme, but you'll have to watch the video to see what I mean. But there was it was very much like that where Tommy was under the radar, and then it got down to the 1v1, and the person who was up against him was like, I got this in the bag. But then he had like a shrine that said like, you gain a life at your upkeep for each shrine you control. And it's like, oh no, I can't race this. So it was something like that. I don't remember exactly how it went down, but it was something like that. But it really is like that where it's like, it's not that bad. And then it's really bad, really fast. But I think in some ways, I think it's worse because, you were talking about like with Edgar, you just mentally prepare and you make sure you have decent answers in your deck. But like, in Edgar, it's like you mostly just have to like play board wipes, and all colors have some number of board wipes. enchantments, you're kind of pressed. Like if you're playing like red or black, you don't really have enchantment removal unless you're playing like the really expensive lot of mana colorless options.
Right.
So you just don't have like I guess black has a couple options now with like Feed the Swarm and Withering Torment, I think is the newer one from Duskborn. So you have some options, but like just not a lot. So I think that's where it's actually scarier. Is that. And the other knock against Go-Shintai that I would say, this isn't against your Go-Shintai, just Go-Shintai, the card,
right,
is that they all look the same.
Yeah.
Like you technically can build Go-Shintai as any kind of enchantment deck because it specifically can like reanimate enchantments. So like that's like a version of Go-Shintai that I think is cool and should exist, but I feel like I haven't played against it, is like reanimator enchantments, like intentionally loot away or something, like big scary enchantments in your graveyard, reanimate them with Go-Shintai. That seems really cool. But like really 99% of shrine decks, or 99% of them are shrine decks. And really when you do that, you just play the best shrines, and that's basically
the only shrines. Literally every single shrine ever printed in Magic is in that deck.
And then the main difference between all of the Go-Shintai decks are just going to be like your mana base. So like you built it for the $100 budget deck, the $100 budget episode. So like your mana base is like, it's suboptimal. You got a lot of tap lands. You got like, evolving wilds and for your fetch lands. But like the person who spent like hundreds of dollars, they're just like, their deck exactly the same, except they have real fetch lands into shock lands, into surveil lands or whatever. So I think that's like my biggest knock against Go-Shintai. But with that said, I don't hate playing against it either. It is like actually like just kind of a cool, like I like the commanders that let you play the cards that you might not play otherwise. That I don't know. I think that probably averages out to a B as well. Another B commander, just because like I have problems with the commander and the play patterns, but at the same time that play pattern is kind of neat. So I don't know.
I would also say it's a B. I do think that there's a lot of variety that you can have with Go-Shintai because that ability is any enchantment. But a lot of the time it is just shrines. And there's only so many shrines that you can put into the deck. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I mean a lot of the main win cons across every Go-Shintai Life's Origin deck are the same because it's the shrines that
the discard one, the
discard one, the ones that ping you for life, and the one that you can pay one on your end step and hit someone for damage equal to the shrines you control. Like it's just those. So it's like the way I kind of went about building it was just, okay, I've got the commander, throw in the two major cycles of shrines from old Kamigawa and newer Kamigawa, throw them in there, and then
there are also some from like a core set from a few years ago or something.
Yeah, and then throw all those in there, and then from then it's just I almost just treat it like any other enchantment deck where it's just you've got a lot of Enchantress effects, Mesa Enchantress and stuff like that, and it's just value from that. So so I
even on a $100 budget, it's still very good.
Yep.
So what do we got next, Tommy?
Up next, we have my companion deck that you saw in the Companions episode. The commander is Imoti, Celebrant of Bounty, with the companion of Keruga, the Macro Sage. We've seen this a couple of times. This was built. Preston actually built this deck back in our very first Christmas episode.
This was actually the deck that I played on this episode.
And then we traded after the episode the decks that we played in those episodes, or in that episode. So it's just big. It's Simic, big Simic, so big stompy creatures and cascade effects because of what Imoti can do with giving expensive spells cascade. And then I don't have to keep Keruga as the companion. I could get rid of him and it'd be 99% the same deck. I kind of like keeping him there because he's an interesting restriction on the deck. But
it often also draws you so many cards. It's just kind of nice to just have it there.
He draws a lot, but it's an interesting restriction because he only lets you have lands and spells with CMC 3 or greater.
Right.
So like I can't have Soul Ring. I can't have Arcane Signet can't have those
the rampant growth.
A lot of the like really cheap staples in Simic and in Commander in general.
Well, and I remember
them,
telling you about Up the Beanstalk, which is the enchantment that lets you draw a card every time you play something. I think that's 5 or greater, but it's a 2-mana enchantment, so like you can't put it even though it's like perfect for the deck.
Yep.
It doesn't work with Keruga, but
and that's why I keep Keruga. Yeah, there are a couple counter spells, but they're the more expensive ones that have weird conditions on them. But
yes, the counter
specifically the card counter spell and the other good cheaper counter spells are not in there because of Keruga. So
you could still play Fierce Guardianship.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Did you? I can't remember how it went down. Did you end up having? Because we have an episode. So this has been on the show a couple times. We played it on the companion episode, like you mentioned, and it was on the original Christmas episode where Jason played it. But there's an episode that we filmed that hasn't come out yet where everyone plays a Simic deck.
Yep.
And that hasn't come out yet. And you made some changes to it for that.
So,
Did you I can't remember. Did you add the colorless sub theme, or is there just like some colorless support?
So in that one, it kind of turned into a colorless / Eldrazi sub theme.
Just so it was a little bit different since we've already seen the deck.
It's a little
before.
different since we had already seen the deck twice, and because Modern Horizons 3 had just recently come out when we made that, which had a lot of cool Eldrazi stuff in it. So I threw a lot of those cards in there and gave it that sort of sub theme just to make it different. As far as the version of the deck that I like to keep together and play outside of the show, I took most of those out because it's cool, it's fun, but I feel like it's a more complete package without that. It's a much more succinct and kind of more powerful almost version of the deck without those, because it doesn't have a lot of the drawbacks that like, big crazy Eldrazi colorless creatures have. So
yeah, I mean, I feel like this is just like a Simic value pile, and I've spent a lot of podcast episodes ranting about how I hate Simic value piles. That being said, any restrictions that you put on it, I think makes it more interesting. So like having companions, I've had a couple companion decks for Commander over the years. I think that's like a decent way to have at least a little. I mean, a lot of the times your companion's not that much of restrictions. Like you said, if you didn't have Keruga, your deck would still be 90-something% the same.
Right.
Like you wouldn't change that much, but like it's a little bit of a restriction. Like when you did play with a little bit of the colorless creature sub theme, that's like is a little bit of another restriction. So when you do that to yourself, to just kind of self-regulate, self-police a little bit, let you play with a little bit of cards that you wouldn't play otherwise, but it also kind of makes it more fun to play against. Because you're seeing cards you wouldn't necessarily always see in the Simic value piles. So it's not my favorite of your decks. It's maybe my least favorite deck, because it's also like once you get like through all the cascades, it's a lot to keep track of, because you're like, okay, this has to happen before this happens, and you have like things that'll cascade into cascading and into cascading. Like multiple stacks are on are happening at the same time. So
while also there's random, other cast triggers and spell triggers and stuff going on in the middle of the chain of cascades, and so it's just like it's so much to keep track of. We've talked about it before.
But this is worse somehow.
I
don't know.
I think specifically because I lean so hard into the cascade portion that Imoti gives to big creatures and big spells. That is the extra wrinkle that makes it a little bit worse than a lot of Simic decks. But most Simic decks are just like solitary, like kind of,
I'd give it a. I'll give it a C.
Crazy stuff.
I'll give it a C. What?
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah. I think I'll give it also an A, maybe high B, just because it is a lot to keep track of.
Oh, it's fun to pilot, but it also, like I've talked about before, it's a lot for my brain to handle, because it's a lot more of just combining triggers and triggers bouncing off of each other. So I have to remember, okay, how does the order of this resolve? What resolves what triggers what, and the order that those resolve in, and it's.
Yeah, because sometimes you have a choice. Sometimes you have a...
So then that's another layer of, oh, God, am I making the right decision? I don't know. So that's,
All right. Well, I was low on that one, but the next one I'm high on. What do we got next, Tommy?
Oh, we got another one that I'm a big fan of. Arcades the Strategist.
Hell yeah.
I think his whole thing is he lets creatures with Defender attack as if they didn't have Defender, and then they assign combat damage equal to their toughness rather than their power.
Butts.
So big butts and using them to smack face. It's great. Steven actually built this deck for me for the
Secret
Santa Christmas episode. And I thank him every day for it. It's a very fun deck to play, and it's a very cool commander. It's super fun. So just a lot of cards that normally wouldn't, most cards that wouldn't see play basically anywhere else in Commander, because Defender is an okay mechanic in some situations. Commander is not one of the better situations for.
Well, there's just so few that you would play. Like you'd play like Wall of Omens, Wall of Roots, and then after that, it's a big drop off of like how often you would play them. You know, like there's a few that you would play, but not many.
Mm-hmm.
See, I'm pretty sure when we talked about Arcades in our top 100 Commander series, I'm pretty sure I gave it an S. I'm also gonna give your Arcades an S. And I know, Morgan, your complaint is probably going to be the same about Go-Shintai, is that all Arcades decks look the same. But it's the fact that Defenders never had a solid commander that they could use that you could build around. And it made all of these cards that, you know, like you said, Tommy, probably wouldn't get played in Commander a whole lot. It made them not only viable, but it made them threatening. These cards are now a problem when they hit the table if you're playing Arcades. So that I'm big fan of Arcades. I think Arcades is such a cool commander. It's also an Elder Dragon, and I love the Elder Dragons. So
yeah, this might make me a hypocrite, but everything that I said about Go-Shintai applies to Arcades, but Arcades is an S tier commander.
But you like it in Arcades, but not
I might be
no. It makes sense. It makes sense.
So
kind of.
I might have taken it apart before I met you guys, but I used to have an Arcades deck, and it was so good that I had to take it apart because it just didn't mesh with my play group at the time. But now that you have it, and it's like, it's not exactly the same deck, but it has a lot of the same cards that I can kind of live through your joy. Like watching you have fun with the deck reminds me of how much fun I had with my deck, and it's like it gives me warm fuzzy feelings. And it's true that like it does have kind of like the same problem with a lot of these other commanders, where it's like it tells you to play the thing, so you play the thing, and so a lot of the decks look similar. It does have that problem, but because Defenders have kind of always existed, like Wall of Roots is like from the 90s. Like we have like I think Defenders have literally always existed, and because of that, you have a lot more wiggle room as to which ones you do and don't want to play. Like maybe there's a reason that you like, maybe these are like, maybe you want like 30 in your deck. Maybe these are technically the 30 best ones and the ones that people are playing the most, but maybe there's like a handful that you're like, but I really want to play these for this like sub theme I have in my deck, or maybe I already have these, so I'm going to jam them in, or like maybe I like the art or whatever. Like I feel like there's a lot more wiggle room than there is with Go-Shintai, because Go-Shintai there's a lot fewer
shrines.
There's a lot fewer shrines, whereas Arcades I think is a lot more open as to what, like, yes, there's gonna be a ton of overlap, but I think it's it allows for a little bit more wiggle room while the deck is still fully functional. And it definitely is like a Simic value deck, but I think as far as Simic value decks go, this is maybe my favorite one,
it's
because
green, blue, white.
But the white's just there for the board wipes and the protection. It has some good defenders.
I've talked about this before, obviously not on the podcast. I've never been on the podcast, but like white, I think is the best support color for Commander.
It is the best support color.
/ like splash color.
Yeah.
If you're gonna splash anything, white is the best one to do, because you've got you splash just a tiny bit of white, and all of a sudden now you've got stuff like access to stuff like Teferi's protection, literally all of the best board wipes in the game, except a couple. Like, so
Didn't you also find out that you accidentally have an infinite combo in the deck? Or did Steven put it in there on purpose? I don't remember.
No, I think he put it in there on purpose.
Okay.
I think he put it in there on purpose. But
all right, and then we have one more of your main decks to go through. What do we got?
My newest of my main decks, Don Andres the Renegade, built by Morgan for our last Secret Santa where we
I
did.
didn't build the deck. I just gave you the commander.
Or no, that's right. You gave me the commander.
We did Secret Santa, but only the commander.
Yeah, but only the commander. So I got the commander from you.
Yeah.
Built the deck myself. Yeah. And yeah, it's really fun. It's all about stealing stuff and taking other people's creatures and cards and making them work for me and give me value instead of their owner. It's fun. So very, very what am I trying to say? Very flavorful deck because he's a pirate and he's a renegade, and so But so yeah, I've only played this once so far because the episode we filmed was the most recent Christmas episode. And with winter being winter, we haven't had as many meetups.
The Midwest
for game
got wrecked
nights.
with that snow, man.
God, yeah, and then again, just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So we haven't had as many game nights since I put this deck together to play it in, but I look forward to playing it a lot more because he's really fun.
Yeah, I think that stealing people's stuff is always fun. The main reason that I think that it's fun is because no two games are going to be the same.
Yes, exactly.
You always have variety. You always have something different. You always have something new that's going to happen. And you never know how certain cards that your opponents are playing that you're going to steal are going to synergize with cards that you've put into your deck that you've built. And it gives you a pretty hefty incentive to cast your opponent's stuff. Like, it gives you treasure tokens.
Yep.
Which there's definitely ways to abuse that. And let's say you steal somebody's doubling season or parallel lives. Now you're making twice the amount of tokens. And, pair that with a Amulet of Vigor, so those tokens are becoming untapped, so you can immediately use them. I'm just saying.
You're in Magical Christmas Land, but yes, your point stands.
I mean, you built this is. I mean, you're in black, so it's not like you can't have tutor, so you can get the Amulet of Vigor out pretty consistently, so you're getting your treasures untapped consistently. Like, I genuinely think that should be a major part of the game plan is to get Amulet of Vigor, so that I can cast things that I've stolen from my opponents, which I can then string into other spells.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of the main reason when you gave me that commander, I was really excited to build it because it's as we've seen with all my other decks, it's very different because a lot of my other commanders I do are like, here's the thing they do, and they're really good at that. So here's how you're going to play the deck, and so a lot of the games are going to look somewhat similar because you're doing the same idea for every game because that's just how kind of commander is with a lot of stuff. So this one being it's all about what value can you get from the other people at the table makes it every game completely different. So that's like one of the main draws to him as a commander and to that play style in general. It's really fun.
Yeah, that's why I like Theft deck so much. So like what Jason had said that the games are always going to play different because you're always going to hit different things. But it also, I feel like this isn't always going to be true. It really depends on how much you put in your own deck and what your backup plans are and whatnot. But I feel like in general, Theft decks scale really well with the table.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're playing with weaker decks, it's not going to curb stomp. If you're playing against stronger decks, you're probably stealing stronger stuff. So maybe you can punch up a little bit. So there's some variance there, but I think in general, it's a good neutralizer into it kind of matches whatever table you're sitting at least a little bit. So I like that. And spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the most recent Christmas episode, it wasn't the best performance of the deck. I was really bummed because I remember you said we have the deck list pop up at the beginning of the episodes when we're doing our deck intros, and I was looking through your deck list, and I was like, "Yo, this deck rules."
There's some cool, yeah.
I love
There's a lot of cool stuff in there that I just didn't get to use. So,
I love Theft decks. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of Theft cards in my Chaos deck. I used to have a Ragavan Theft deck, so I really like these kind of decks. Jason briefly had the newest Gonti, the one from.
Which I still have. I just need to. I need to dedicate some time into changing it and switching out some cards.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But yeah, I really like Theft deck. So we're gonna play a game after we record, and maybe you pulled that one out just because I want to see it.
Did I bring it? I don't know if I brought it with me tonight. I'm sorry.
What a loser!
Well, we have a little bit of time, Tommy. I know you had mentioned that you have some precons. Do you
Mhm.
want to just tell the people what precons you have, and then maybe tell us what your if you had any upgrade plans for any of them, or if they're all kind of just like when the right deck comes along that I want to build, I'm tearing it apart, or
Mhm.
like where are you
Could
kind of at with them? What precons do you have?
Yeah, so I have quite a few precons actually, and I apologize. I'm probably going to forget some that I have. If you guys think of one that you know of that I forget, jump in. But um, I'll try to go in order of when I got them. Um, so starting with Strafon, Mara Progenitor from Crimson Vow. He's the vampire tribal one from that kind of became my Edgar deck part of it. Um, I had Prosper Tomebound from
I totally forgot you had that.
yeah, because I never play it anymore, and I've torn it apart so much that
Oh,
it would take some doing to put it back together as the precon, but I have the all the cards for it. um I've got uh uh, uh why am I blanking on it? um Urza, not Lord High Artificer, or Urza Chief Artificer from Brothers War. I've got
which you've played that one on the show
that one I did play on the
on
show
everyone
on
played an artifact deck.
Artifact deck. I
Yeah,
haven't played it in a while. I might bring it back out at some point because it's a fun one. Um,
it's cool. It's strong.
yeah, it's really strong. That's the main reason I don't play it a lot. It's really powerful. Um, God, I'm sorry. I'm gonna get my phone because I have some of them written down.
don't show the
Um,
Duskmorn precon?
yes, we were just talking about that. I have the Duskmorn Simic Precon, so landfall stuff.
Is it Zamone that's the commander for that?
Yes, the face commander
Yeah,
Zimone.
but you've never
Um,
played it, right?
I have literally never played that. Yeah, yeah.
Did you
Um,
bring it?
not tonight, no. But I should.
Man.
I'll bring it next time, and we'll do that. From Thunder Junction, I have the quick draw,
Mm-hmm.
the spell slinger
Which you
one.
played on the Thunder
That was on the
Junction
Thunder Junction
episode. Yeah,
episode.
yeah,
A lot of these you'll see on the ones that were for that set.
yeah.
So Fallout, I have the Caesar's Legion deck.
Of
I'm sure you
course the
could take
Mardu
that
one.
apart to upgrade Isshin.
Yeah, I've put a lot of pieces from it in Isshin. What do you say, Jason?
I said, of course the Mardu one.
Yeah, of course the Mardu one. Well, that one also came about because y'all were like the other three on that episode were like, I want this one, and this one. I'm like,
No, I, I,
okay.
I didn't, I didn't, I don't know that I picked dog meat. I think I just got, I think I was in that case. I was like, oh, dog meat's the only one left. That's fine.
Yeah, I think it came down to you and me, and we both wanted dog meat, and so I don't remember either way, but yeah,
Oh, I don't remember how that, I don't remember.
yeah.
That wasn't even an episode. That was a live stream we did.
That was the live stream, wasn't it? Yeah. I've got um Demir Precon from Karlov Manor, the sort of like reanimator theme from the graveyard. Um, let's see, Lost Caverns of Ixalan. I've got the vampire one. We saw that in an episode. Commander Masters. I have the Eldrazi one. I have both the Eldrazi precons actually from Commander Masters and from Modern Horizons 3.
Because
Um,
you
uh,
used a lot of that to do the colorless
yep,
sub version of the
yep.
Simic deck that we saw in an episode that's not out yet.
Not out yet. Yeah. Um,
I'm sorry, guys. We have like 3 or 4 episodes that we filmed that haven't come out yet. It's my fault. I'm sorry. All right, I'll get there when I get there. Got a lot going on.
He had to go and have another kid, and so
Yeah,
He just
well,
had to.
that's
just had
that's
to.
only like item number 1 on like 20 of like of why it's taking me so long. But yeah,
I'm just going down the list that I see on here. Lord of the Rings. I have the Riders of Rohan.
oh my god, I totally
Humans
forgot
deck.
you had
That
that.
one's super fun.
Oh, I love that
that
deck.
one's really
Yeah,
fun.
that's a cool one.
Um,
Because Eowyn's the commander for that
yep,
one, right?
Eowyn is the
Yeah.
commander for that, and that's really
Didn't
fun.
you win that game too?
Yes, I won that game. Yeah, that human deck just kind of steamrolls if you let it get going. Um, I think we're getting close to ones.
That might be all.
That might be all of them.
So
I'm just
so
looking
of
again.
of the precons that you have that haven't been kind of taken apart for parts, are there any of them that you feel like you might want to put some love into, or are they all kind of just on the chopping block?
Most of them are on the chopping block, I think. If I was gonna put some, well, one that actually I probably should have put on the list now for talking about more in the episode is the Riders of Rohan. That one I do want to keep together because it's also very on theme because it's only cards from it's upgraded but only with cards from the Lord of the Rings set.
Okay.
So every card in it is was printed in the Lord of the Rings, whether it's an original or a reprint, it was in that set.
That's what I do with my Lord of the Rings decks. I have all 4 of them and I upgraded them, but I only upgrade them with cards from the Lord of the Rings set.
Yeah. So I did that. So that one's probably the most one that I keep together and actually play. As far as ones that I want to upgrade, probably Urza would be fun. Although it's hard to just not get the really good broken mono blue Urza for an artifact deck.
Well, now it's a game changer, isn't it? It's,
yeah.
That makes. Yeah.
Yep.
Sir is. Yeah. Those two are probably the ones that I would hesitate to just cannibalize for other decks. The only one, the one that I would outright not cannibalize is Eowyn because she's super fun. And
I'm excited to see more of Zimone. I'm excited to see what that does because all of the other Duskborn Precon decks are really, really, really cool. Like I love my Duskborn Precon. I can't even think of what the
Master of Keys or something.
It's the Master of Keys.
You play the backup commander.
And
it's Amanatu's the face commander.
Yeah. That's so much fun. I have so much fun with that deck.
Yeah, I was just looking at that too, and I think Zimone would be fun as the commander, but the backup commander, also would be kind of fun for that too, because she's the one that, if her power is, depending on if her power is even or odd, determines what kind of spells you can cast as if they had flash. So it's like if it's odd, I think if it's odd, you get non-creatures. If her power is even, you can play creature spells as though they had flash. And then whenever you draw a card, you put a +1/+1 counter on her.
Yeah, that just seems like such a cool commander.
So
you got to do extra math.
yeah, more math and throwing stuff out there. So either of the commanders, I think, would be fun for that. So yeah, I need to bring that and play it on when we meet up. But
yeah. So we know what a couple of Tommy's favorite decks were. Jason, did you and I state what our favorite of Tommy's decks were? I think mine might have to be Arcades. It might be. I think Isshin's gives it a run for its money just because Isshin itself is so cool. But I think it might need a little more. That might need a little more attention and upgrades before I could say Isshin's my favorite of Tommy's decks. I think I would say Arcades as is.
See, I would have to stick with Isshin because I think it's fun to play against. It's a cool deck to see, and I just still think that there's so much potential in every single game that Isshin gets played. I'm just like, this is the game where Isshin's going to pop off. Usually it doesn't happen, no offense.
It's happened a few times. It's happened a couple times.
I always have that thing, like, this is the game where Isshin's just going to go crazy and we're all going to die on turn 7.
I'm looking forward to when that happens too. But yeah, I do need to upgrade that.
Well, cool. I think that's going to be it for this episode. Any final thoughts or things that you want the people to know about your decks?
No, we've talked about most of them. I think it was pretty fun. Thanks for having me. And
yeah, I can't believe.
Hope I can come back on for more stuff.
I can't believe that we've been doing this podcast
whenever.
For like 2 years and we just now got Tommy on an episode. That seems ridiculous.
I mean, I think that we've had Tommy on the first year wrap up video, didn't we?
Yeah.
No way. No way. I don't think so. I don't remember.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean,
wow, is this really the first non-gameplay episode you've been on?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, pretty much all of my involvement up until this point has just been on the Commander gameplay.
I wonder who's the main blame for that.
Preston, because he's not here. To defend himself.
No, it's Stave.
Yeah, it's Dave. Yeah. He's not here to defend himself and probably doesn't watch our content, so he he can't defend himself. Speaking of Tommy's decks, though, most of the decks that we talked about today, you can see on our gameplay show, either episodes that have come out or episodes that will come out. So make sure you're subscribed if you are not already, and go check out all of those other videos. Thank you so much, Tommy, for joining. Everyone, wish him a happy birthday in the comments. If you've seen a lot of these decks in action, also let him know what your thoughts thoughts are. If you have a favorite deck of his, a deck that you want to see him bring back at some point, anything like that. And then we'll try to find more themes for the podcast to bring Tommy in on in the future. We will see you guys in a couple weeks with another episode. We love you. See you later. Bye.